Roundtable Talks. It is the Into the Core podcast edition. So as a lot of people would know that I do my podcasting on Thursdays, and I'm just really privileged to bring another love of mine, which is around Roundtable Talks, which usually happens on Mondays. We usually pick a location and we get together and we network. But because we're here on the podcast section, I've got to reintroduce ourselves and welcome to Into the Core podcast, the Roundtable edition. So let's get it. Into the Core.
Get into it.
All good things in Africa and beyond. Into the Core. Into the Core. Into the Core. So it's all about all good things happening in and around Africa and beyond. And I'm just really excited to have an amazing panel with me. I want to introduce Franco Veroni. He's such an established person. He's worked with so many luxury brands, and he has really focused in on building businesses and actually allowing them to transition. Let's just say that so there's a perfume industry that he's worked for, a luxury brand that he's worked for, Acqua di Parma. I didn't even realize it until I was like going through all his credentials, and I was like, oh my God, I love this perfume. And, so Franco has been a part of that transition, going from a small luxury business and getting into the bigger side of the business, or the business of fashion, let's say, or the luxury lifestyle business. We've got Michael Oyodi, who I didn't also realize. This is funny how you have conversations with people and you understand what they've done, but he was like the bigger picture of what Art Cafe was here in Nairobi. And I absolutely love Art Cafe. And I feel like where it has transitioned to being is probably because of the people who plugged in and actually planted the seeds and actually made it happen into the space that it actually was. But not only that, he has transitioned so many businesses into the e-commerce space, allowing them to grow and thrive. And that's what we love about Michael. And he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. Isabella and Franco both work together for E for Impact. And this is how I met them both, because I was introduced by a very amazing friend of mine, Waridi from FA254. And Isabella is part of an institution, a cohort that is actually building businesses right here. And I feel like the best kept secrets are right now on my platform. All of you are my best kept secrets, I believe. And I'm just really excited to have you here and on board. I feel that there's always room for growth, and especially when you're strategically thinking about your business. E for Impact has impacted so many people. And I want to say one of the few people who actually benefited from you, Isabella, from the label Saba, and she's been bragging and talking about you. And I feel that it's really an honor to have both of you sitting right here. Fabian is an amazing person. I got to meet him in Addis Ababa for our roundtable talks because we did a collaboration with Mahalet from the Hub of Africa Fashion Week, which I was also a co-founder of, and of which Waridi Warda has also been developing over the years and working in partnership and guiding. So Fabian is the CEO of Engelhorn, and it is one of the biggest department stores in Germany. And he's going to give us some really great, wise advice, because that's exactly why we're here. We want to talk about how we impact our local industry and how we build it into a global stage. Because no matter what happens, everybody wants to be on a global stage. And right now we are at a space where it's a village. We're no longer just a small country. We're no longer just a continent. We are a village, and we all interact with each other. And thanks to, technology, this is how we're even managing to have these conversations. And then in dealing with our businesses, I want to welcome to the stage also Sammy Thuita, who is also, he's the regional e-commerce lifestyle customer manager. He's the one who basically is building all of our businesses logistically. And remember, if we don't have our logistics sorted, then what business are we talking about? It starts right there. So you guys, welcome to the stage and welcome to the Roundtable Talks into the Core Edition. I want to see who I'm starting with, and if I could just allow you guys to give a little bit of a small intro of yourselves. So I'm just going to start with, let's go with Franco. I started with you, so let's just carry on as we were. So Franco, just talk a little bit about yourself and what you do before we get into the engagement.
All right. Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this eldest guy on this panel. That means that I spent more than 35 years in fashion. The fashion group at that time, that was Gruppo GFT in Italy, and we had a license of Valentino, Giorgio Armani, Calvin Klein, Emmanuel Ungaro, Christian Dior. So all the major designers, men and women. So I spent 7 years from strategic planning to be the head then of the commercial. After this experience, I've been a couple of years on the other side. So I went to work with some before going to Paris to join LVMH group as a CEO of. Most of my time more on business development and building brands, and also about commercial and development. What I like is just to bring my experience and understanding when you try to sell a collection internationally. And especially if you are in clothing and apparel, there are so many different, aspects to, let's say, the basic experiences that I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Franco. Thank you for that. There's a little bit of background noise from somebody's space. Is it breaking up, guys? I hope it's not. Michael, can I ask you to jump in now and give us like a brief synopsis of everything that you do or what you're doing with Verve Pro?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Linda. Such a privilege to be here and impart the knowledge that the little knowledge that I have on this space. I think e-commerce is one of the fastest growing sectors, especially in the lifestyle industry, because a lot of merchants have come to realize that if they want to tap into these international markets, they need to tap into the power of e-commerce. They need to get themselves online. They need to make people aware about their products, and more importantly, they need to enable the customers in any part of the world to be able to check out seamlessly from their stores. So that's what that need is what birthed Verve Pro essentially, because we realized a lot of entrepreneurs are struggling, all the way from small merchants who are just starting out to even the big boys in the field. They're struggling with understanding what an online buyer journey is. They're struggling with mapping that out with the experiences that their customers are having. So that's why we decided to step in and try to help some of these brands do that. And it's always a joy to me when I get feedback from a customer in that they just got their first customer in any other part of the world, Belgium, France, and they're able to make that first order abroad. It's just a very powerful thing. So I'm happy to be here and to impart my knowledge and to be with a very experienced panel.
Bro, how did I just join these donates?
Thank you so much. It looks like somebody's getting a scolding. All right, so let's jump into Sammy. Sammy, are you able to speak right now? If not, Sammy, let's jump into Fabian. Thank you so much, Fabian, for being with us. Let's give us a little bit of a brief background of your business.
Thank you, Linda, so much for having me. And it was really a pleasure to meet you live in Addis Ababa a couple of weeks ago. I'm in a retail business in Germany, in luxury, fashion and sporting goods. Around in the area of Frankfurt, we have some department stores and shops. I'm working as CEO of our family business since 2015. Came to the company in 2003, so over 20 years in our company, and before in different sections of our whole business in Asia and the US before I came back. Our company started 135 years ago, so I'm in the fourth generation, and still trying hard and learning every day. So I'm really glad that I have a possibility with you to share experience and knowledge, and to get our sector of the economy further and further. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fabian. It really was a pleasure meeting with you. And I just have to put this out there. Like, I got Fabian into the most uncomfortable spaces and places through our photo shoot. I thought it was so much fun, and it was such a privilege. Isabella, if it's possible, why don't you introduce yourself? And it was so great meeting both you and Franco together. That was, I learned so much from what you were talking about. So please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Linda. Also for the opportunity to be part of this panel. My name is Isabella. I work for E for Impact, and I feel like I should say E for Impact stands for Entrepreneurship for Impact. So I think that sort of just summarizes everything that we do. But I manage an accelerator program where we work and support entrepreneurs who are trying to, bridge the gaps they have in their businesses in order to grow and create more impact. And one of the sectors that we support is the creative sector. And I think this is the genesis of the conversations we had with Linda. And this is a passionate sector, one, because we have all this expertise and experience that we draw from Italy. When you have somebody like Franco, how do we get that knowledge and experience to our enterprises here in Kenya? And secondly is we see this as an industry that really can create opportunities, especially for the youth. And it also has a big role to play around, environmental conservation, if you think of the different processes that go into the different subsectors of creativity. So this is what we do. We've been here since 2011. We also offer other entrepreneurial programs. We have an MBA that we offer in collaboration with different universities across Africa. We have a footprint across 20 African countries, but Kenya tends to be our lab, with the dynamic sector space here, the people. So this is what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabella. 20 African countries, Kenya being the home base. I think that it's only noble that I actually start with you. As we're thinking about the future of building local, building a local strength within the fashion industry, and kind of pivoting from all of our learnings, because I know we meet, we have conferences, we have workshops, we have capacity, we've got cohorts. There's so many things that are happening, which means that we're all in the greater mindset of, okay, so now how do we scale up? So I just want to understand from your point of view, like, where do you think that our local market sits? And when I say a local market, try and look at Kenya first, and then maybe Africa, then as a whole. And what do you think about where we're sitting right now? And do you think that we need to change a little bit of our consumer mindset? Because that's the space where we need to actually start building.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Linda. Starting with the home ground, I think it's an exciting stage for the Kenyan market right now. There's a lot of movement towards looking at fashion in a manner that it's not just something that it's a one-off or a select for something for the select few, right? And also one of the things that we see both within the country and also across the region is a generational push and mindset of consuming things, right? So there are things where previous generations will look at it like it's a high end and you don't really care so much about the production or the processes that went into coming up with something. But now you have a generation that's asking you, how are you producing it? As a person who is putting the effort and the time into a particular product, getting the benefit of the value of this, and also being more conscious around the environment. So you have all this push towards shaping how products or the fashion industry continues to grow. And there's also a bit more appreciation I see in terms of the African or the Kenyan heritage, the African heritage that people want to identify with, but also identify in a manner that is also can be consumed internationally. So the standards of production, how they can sort of be dressed or curated from that sense that I can identify if I'm wearing something, you can know I'm a Kenyan with this, but it's to a standard that is well appreciated. So that's the direction. And lastly is also you have these brands who are trying to set up shop in Africa for their own processes. So it gives an indication that one, there's skills are starting to build up. We still have a lot of work to go, but there is potential. And also, if you look at the products that are being generated or produced from Kenya or Africa, going across the region or even to the international markets, then you can see that it's a market that has potential to grow locally, but also within the region.
And what do you think about the state of African fashion? Because I have some amazing people who are listening all the way from South Africa, from Nigeria, from Ghana. So we have a very, very healthy and beautifully elevated group of individuals who are listening in. So what do you think about, so you've broken down Kenya, but what do you think about the African landscape?
I think the future of fashion is in Africa, right? Just to appreciate what you're saying, you have all these designers who are starting to take center stage, even on the international circles. You have all these fashion weeks or runways that are being held in Africa. Maybe 5-10 years ago, you would never have thought that this would happen here. But also gracing some of those cover magazines and appreciating the sort of creativity that is coming in here. I think the infusion and the upcoming of African fashions and also recognition to say that there's a space for this kind of fashion. Then, as I said, this Africa is the future of fashion, if you ask me. So I think it's ours to take, it's ours to own and to stamp.
Okay. I want to now kind of circle back into Fabian, because this was one of your intro into the African space. What do you think? What did you feel about looking at the local market? And we're just saying, looking at Ethiopia, how you viewed Ethiopia and what that landscape looked like. I say this because I think it would be nice for them to have a little bit of understanding what you really felt about the industry when you came in to Addis Ababa.
Yeah, thank you. For in the first moments, of course, we see a lot of possibilities for production corporations, and we have put already our footsteps into North Africa, like Morocco and Tunisia. And so it was wonderful days in Addis to see all these young people and also established designers who are international recognized already. And I see this big opportunity in creativity. And so I think the biggest challenge is, of course, to bring the markets and the design together for our customers. So what I saw in Addis was really a wonderful experience, and I totally believe in the great opportunities in the Africa market, and then in the overswell to Europe, or maybe also to the US. And I think that's always the ideas where could I find my first customers when I open my own business or start as a fashion designer. Is it in Africa, which is a huge country, a huge continent, or should I stay in Kenya or South Africa or Ethiopia and find my first customers there and establish my route there before thinking too big and globally? And I think that's always difficult to make a decision.
I applaud that, because I remember Mafi from Mafi just basically saying that sometimes it seems like we're chasing a bigger picture when we're not investing in our own spaces and our own local markets.
Yeah.
And I actually believe that the retailers that we're working with, where are they? There's very few that we can count on our hands. South Africa has got a bigger retail market. Kenya is still developing into that. We've got a lot of online presence, with the likes of Industry Africa, with the likes of Ajoa, with the likes of, there's so many of them that are now building up their platforms. But locally, in our own home bases, we need to really recreate and establish our settings. So I'm going to now ask you, Franco, because you have established a lot of brands, you've established a lot of businesses. What is your take on, building our local markets into an international platform? Because you have built so many. So what is your take?
Right. Well, first of all, I totally share what Fabian said. The first thing in your own country, first of all, the product, the deliveries, the qualities have to be achieved through, because when you try to export to international market, it's like you are going to do Formula One races. The best communication, the best internet site, the best e-commerce platform all over the world. So you under every angle. So instead of dreaming and to be too early to go international, in order to ensure that the product is just perfect. In fashion today, competition is so high that you should have an angle, you should have your own identity, you should have your own quality to differentiate from all that. For my little experience in Africa, we cannot talk about Africa because Africa is 52 countries. I've been in Northern Africa that personally, as an Italian, I don't feel Africa. This is my culturally, it is very different from what I found in Senegal, Burkina, Cameroon, Ivory Coast, Ethiopia. The African community is an opportunity also because you have no duties, no countries because that are similar to your cultural heritage. So the recommendation is just to start doing it properly in Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia. I mean, this is something that can also train you. And the third recommendation, and also a few subtle things about the product. I give to you my own, sales, for instance, in Asia, of collection developed in Italy, and very different in other countries. Like in Italy, we are a sunny country, so there is a sun, thanks God, in spring and summer in white. When I sold the collection, even Valentino in Japan had very poor results. So I went to Japan, and white things were done. And I said, Franco, sorry to say you, but here, white is the color of death. There is a funeral. Whilst in Italy is the opposite. In Italy, you wear in black. And of not understanding properly the culture of the market you want to enter, because clothing and apparel is main expression of your society and your beliefs. So that has to be very careful. Similarly, in purple color, why? Because this is the color we use for funeral in Italy. So when I sold even collection, in Italy, because the same reason, so clothing and fashion is very interesting in terms of style, but careful about understanding the different cultural differences among the countries. So these are very few to people, because it's not so evident, and everybody thinks that the world is the same. For some aspect, yes, but for properly in your own country and understanding where you want to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Franco. Also, just to double check and just switch back in, just make sure your connection is just a little bit, it's been breaking up quite a bit. So we get all the big, beautiful points and then it breaks up a little bit. So just double check the connection. Just a heads up.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so I love how everybody's saying that you've got such amazing points, and then like, oh, he's breaking up just a little bit. So just guys, I think that you guys need to use your creative juices to fill in the blanks. That's a very poor joke. Okay. Right now, I mean, like, I really understand exactly what you're saying, Franco. I would like to double back into Michael. What do you feel about the landscape? Because you've been working right now with a lot of e-commerce spaces and e-commerce businesses. What do you think is one of the biggest struggles for African brands, and especially establishing ourselves locally? And I want to say maybe it's a brick and mortar, maybe it is an e-commerce space, but what are your thoughts? And would you like to also add a little bit onto what Franco was speaking about?
Yes, absolutely. I'll build on that, and as well as Isabella's point, in that there is a sort of digital revolution happening in Africa. Like, the time is now. There's that feeling. It's not, you can't touch it, but it's just there. There's this excitement. There's this buzz everywhere that you go and everywhere that you look, because there's just a merging of, when you look at statistics around mobile penetration, you look at internet penetration, and you overlay that with the creativity and the sense of identity that Africans are finally getting, like, this is us and we are proud to display this. There's a lot of that happening. But what we try and sensitize entrepreneurs on is that that's not all it takes. Like, sometimes just being passionate isn't enough. You have to create the awareness. You have to have the understanding. You have to see it from your customer's point of view. And I think that's where people are really struggling a lot, because the e-commerce space, the way we try and break it down, it's a journey, and we map it out for people so that they can see within each and every step of the journey, what are they not doing right? Because a lot of people just think that because I have an Instagram page, then I should be good to go. Where are my sales, or why are my sales not coming? A lot of people just think because I invested in a website, I don't have to do anything around SEO. I don't have to do anything around the just tagging or the product listing. So there's all these information gaps, but also I'd just say that there's a lot of hunger for people to learn. I'm sensing that a lot, that people are not defensive when you tell them that there's some things they're not getting right. They actually want to come to forums such as this and learn as much as they can and just sponge everything that they can glean out of it so that they can make their businesses better. So that's what I sense is happening in terms of painting a picture on the landscape.
That's actually a good space. Are there brands for you that you have witnessed that have actually made an impact on, especially on the lifestyle space? Are there any brands that you can think about that you feel that have made an impact as of right now?
Within Kenya, I'd say the people that when we talk to the quote unquote the little guy, there's these big brands that they're looking at, and one that really always comes up is Vivo, because of the moves that they're making. They're making a big splash. They just did a big feature story about opening a store in Atlanta. So every entrepreneur sees that in themselves. They see the story and they grab onto that. They gravitate towards it. So like I said, it all starts with one sale, right? It starts with, or you got your first customer abroad. So that's an exciting feeling. So how do we build up on that? And again, just going back to what everyone has been saying, it does have to start with intra-Africa. It does have to start with us identifying the nuances between the cultures, because like I think it was Franco and Fabian who were saying, Burkina culture is different from Senegalese culture, is different from South African culture. So even within us, there are all these opportunities to cross-pollinate and just create something that you can't tell is African, but also there's a bit of nuance around it. So that's what I'd say. There's the big players that everyone looks up to, but everyone is just now trying to find their own identity from their own country's perspective. And also within the country, there are subcultures and microcultures that people are really playing up on.
Okay, that's a great way of looking at it. Fabian, if I'm coming back and tracking back to you, there's a couple of nuances that I feel like, everyone's going to ask me, like, what do you think about the support system that we have here in Africa? How do you think that we need to build that support system? And someone will come back to me and say, why are you asking him about building our own systems here in place? But it's good for us to hear what the outside perspective is actually looking at when we are also trying to build our brands. It's important to see where we say, is there disconnects? Do you see a bridge where we actually need to stop leaning into with each other? Is there are there examples that you can give in terms of like how we need to build our industries, especially on a local perspective?
I mean, what I like really about the possibilities in Africa is that Africa is jumping one generation in digitalization ahead of Europe, because you are starting with mobile in every country, and so it's a really big chance that many people are getting connected, and you probably can find more easily customers for your fashion and for your apparel and accessories. So that's a big opportunity in my opinion. And what I like and what I saw in Addis is that you are super well connected beyond any borders, and there's really an openness to establish friendships and business connections. And here in Europe, everything is so much more established, and there's a lot of jealousy around. between the brands, and no one is sharing a lot of information or knowledge. And that's what I saw in Addis. It was really open, and everyone wanted to push each other and help each other during the fashion days, and that's a big opportunity. And the biggest challenge, in my opinion, what I saw and feel in Africa, is the big distances. I mean, in one country there's 125 million people. That's a quarter of Europe, and then we have to discuss with DHL how we can send and do all the shipments. So what is, and I'm coming back to what I said before. I think the biggest challenge is to define my local market first. Where are my customers when I'm living in Nairobi? Do I find like 10 million possible customers around my home base, or do I have to establish an online store for many countries? So where do I start? Where can I get help, like people like Michael, to give me advice how to start? Because I always see, and even for me, I see the big picture in Europe, and I want to do my e-commerce in Spain or Italy, whatever. But the German market is huge, or maybe the German-speaking areas are huge. So, and that's the same in Africa. If I'm living in Addis, I don't have to start an online shop in South Africa or Kenya first, maybe. So that's to start small and to grow maybe a little slower, but step by step with good fundamental KPIs. I think that's in my opinion a good advice.
Right.
I actually love that. Yeah. Franco, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just take
I have here.
this market has to be, let's say, your training market in order to, to have a precise product. The stores, there are already nice brands. However, if I look at it from, let's say, a merchandising standpoint, where you have your customers well in mind. And because when I meet the designers, somehow, they want to design sketches, but they for the garments or for the bags, for the accessories. And this is a challenge that they have to do, because once you have in mind, you define which are the product features and characteristics. And especially if you do clothing, there is a very big difference in making and thin people, or making it for more shaped women, because otherwise the jacket will not work well. And try to define the product on that specific customer segment. The second is also many designers try pants, knit, shoes, bags. When you do a collection, you should have 2, 3, 4 items. It's too difficult to design, 70 pieces and pretending that each of them will find its place in local markets. And you have in mind your local consumer. Try to understand what could be the 2, 3 outfits that are going for everyday work. Do you want to serve this lady for evening or special occasions? Because as you start, you need to get your identity. In Italy, even in Italy or in Europe, and their own image and identity on few pieces, not necessarily on all the collections. On the contrary, go to work, let's concentrate and do it properly. You have to have the beautiful shapes, the colors, the place in the market, especially if you sell online, when the people cannot look at the 90 pieces in your website. They generally take the items. So my suggestion is really to pay more attention to the product development. And the last point that covers a little bit some stores in Nairobi, even department stores, I think there is a lack in terms of presenting properly the collection. How do you present the collection? How do you present the different themes? How do you present the different outfits? So this is another room in your own market. Because when you come to Europe or to Germany, on other international countries, it will be very difficult. So if you don't pay attention to this angle, it's not enough to put your jacket or your pant or your dress.
So I think one of the things that you're talking about, Franco, is how we're merchandising in our own department stores or in the retail spaces that we are in.
Yeah.
Because, and we had spoken about this between yourself and Isabella about talking about literally having a, how you tier your garments and how you want them to be placed and how you want them to be viewed, and having your classics versus a new collection. So paying attention to the classics and then also going back and reverting into what your new collections are. So for those who don't know, then there are aspects called planograms or merchandising sheets that you can also refer to. And which I think every brand needs to really pay attention to, is how you want to be viewed. It needs to be consistent across the board. So whatever is happening in your local market needs to be the same that is seen on your international market. I want to kind of cut space into skilled workmanship. And I feel like one of the things of leveraging also on our local spaces is also how important it is to build our skilled workers also on the back end, because as brands, we are put into a space where you're forced to actually pay attention to what you're doing and why you're doing, the fabrics that you're using, where you're sourcing, the workers that you're, or the skilled artisans that you're working with. So my question, and I would love to hear your comments also on the other side, because I see Koya is here, Erica is here, Katira is here. I'm seeing Colombia, I'm seeing South Africa. I see so many amazing people here. I would love to still hear your inputs on what you think about presenting yourselves locally and leveraging into an international market or our global village. But how can African countries actually collaborate, to create and establish themselves, even through promoting skilled workmanship and exchanging our learnings? Michael, what do you think about that?
That's a very good point. And because of my digital bias, just allow me to bring in the perspective of one of those skills is the digital skills. And there is a need for some of these entrepreneurs to either own those skills themselves or acquire and train people who are already skilled in that sector. Because I'll bring it to what I'll build up on what Franco was saying, in terms of a lot of people don't understand how to process the data that's available either on the back end of their website or their social media pages. So they don't know how to use that to actually target who they actually want. So they're trying to speak to everyone, and that's hard. You really have to hone in and find your tribe, and then now build from there. But when people just want to display everything at the same time, it just becomes this sort of it's just a clustered message. So nothing really sticks. So I think what we try and help people do from a digital perspective is process those data-driven insights, and then that helps them also when they're targeting. So like, as Franco was saying, if you have these 3 pieces that you feel, okay, I have really found my identity and my niche as a designer, who are they for? So the digital spaces that you're in will give you the opportunity to actually zero in on, yes, I'm looking for women who are curvaceous and are this age and have this disposable income and have this. So you're really able to find your people and speak to them online and create stories that really resonate with them, and then they can buy into your brand. Even more than buying your product, they buy into your brand because you're actually speaking to their need and their pain points.
Right.
And also you're being creative.
Isabella, when you have been doing your cohorts, what are some of the aspects that you have been, what are the main elements and the main push that you guys have with E for Impact? And especially when it comes to building local. And I think that it cuts across also to your 20 countries that you also work with. What are some of those learning skills that, Michael has touched on? I feel like Franco has touched on it. And people being a little bit more, I almost feel like we need to put horses blinders when it comes to our brands and just really paying attention to who our customers are and why.
So what we managed to do, Linda, because you're right, skilled workmanship is a challenge in the local market. And so you find a lot of the designers, the creators, entrepreneurs grappling with this. But one of the things that we have tried to do with the help of Franco and some of the networks that we have in Italy is, one, to try and get this trained people who have either taught or have been in the industry to transfer some of those skills to our entrepreneurs where we are working. So the idea would be, we're not just building you as an entrepreneur of a business, we want to build your entire team. So we're talking about, if you're the person who's carrying the vision of the business, you're talking about finance, do you have a production manager? So that really everything is moving in tandem. So this has been one of the ways, collaborating with skilled people from Italy who come here, offer master classes, and then we sort of do a twinning for the local enterprises with skilled people who can be able to elevate the workmanship of the skilled labor. The second thing that I've seen working very well with also some of our cohorts, because over time you start to see how can we leverage the different skills and the different activities that they're doing in the space. So we had, for example, in our 3rd cohort, we had somebody who had a huge space where she was doing production and she was not using it at full capacity. Then you have somebody who's struggling with, you have 2 or 3 tailors who are not very consistent, and you know how that can be a challenge. So the idea was to have a conversation with them and say, if you were to produce from your peers' space, you're assured of time, the quality of your product, and that way you can also build the capacity of your in-house tailor for the time where you're ready to scale, because it doesn't make so much sense to keep struggling with 2-3 tailors, whereas somebody who has 50% capacity that you can sort of collaborate. So these are some of the ways that we've tried to address with the skilled workmanship. The other thing that we are trying to do now is to partner with some of the institutions who offer this artisanal skills and see how do we sort of look at the curriculum and build something that works for the entrepreneurs and the designers locally, but also makes it very competitive, because at the end of the day, you're running a business, you have to have a competitive edge. As you said, the materials that you're buying are not cheap, so you have to get it right almost the first time. So these are some of the experiences that we've had there at E for Impact.
I think that's brilliant. Are there some of the brands that you would love to highlight? Because I think what you guys have been doing is absolutely amazing. Are there brands that you think that?
Sure. So actually, I just want to use one of the examples that Franco had alluded to around the concept stores. And I guess also speaks to the theme of this conversation. You know, how do you build local strength for this global recognition? So we have an enterprise. She's called Zanta Adede. She's in the leather and accessories space, and she's taken a store in one of the malls in Nairobi Village Market. But in this concept, I think it's also the altruistic nature of Africa, where you're saying, how do you bring somebody else so that you're not walking or making it by yourself? So she works with different designers and different entrepreneurs who complement her products. And this is not just the local enterprises. I know she's talking for different designers from Ethiopia. Last year, we had an amazing opportunity to collaborate with designers from Ethiopia, from Uganda, from Mozambique. And so this way you're able to sort of make a fusion, and you're showing the face of Africa as opposed to just saying, it's the face of Kenya. So those are some of the brands. And, she's talking things like Diro. She has amazing brands from Ankole, some brands from Ethiopia as well. So these are some of the, yeah.
I think that just adapting to and collaborating, even within all of our challenges, I know that Connie is somewhere here online, but I was and I bragged about this a lot, about how in Ethiopia, the idea of growing together, it's literally the Ubuntu of what everybody in Africa is looking for. It's that you've run out of fabric. I need to help you. I need to scale you. Let me introduce you to Franco. Let me introduce you to Fabian. Let me introduce you to Isabella, because I believe that without that cohesive collaboration, there's nowhere we're going. And to hold things to your chest, what is the point of it all? So I really want to, I just speak of Ubuntu because I do love the brand Ubuntu also. But just speaking about some of these spaces and places, to me, I want you just to kind of write a comment for me, because you're talking about some of the, because she wrote, it's a great point. We run an organization which supports designers in SA, and we get access to market. Knowledge and skill sharing is at the core of what we do. Can you highlight some of the brands and the people and the organizations that you work with? And how can we, as the core and the people who are sitting here on the Roundtable Talks, be able to have conversations with you? I feel like you need to be sitting on the table. I'm like, how do I give you access right now? But I feel like you need to be sitting also on the table just to hear what you are doing in South Africa. So if you could just give us a little bit of that. I know that also Thulani, who's also online, has been doing quite a bit of work within the South African space and globally also. And we have a 4.0 fashion WhatsApp group, which is Fashion 4.0. And it's just about people who just want to engage and establish each other and collaborate with each other. Fabian, do you feel like at this point, we would be able to get into a space where, I know that there's a lot of people who want to get into the European market. And this goes for both Franco and for Fabian. Everybody is trying to get out. We have a lot of issues. Oh my gosh, tariffs, shipping tariffs. I wish Sammy would be able to say something right now, but I know, Sammy, are you able to speak?
Yeah, I am able to speak. Number one, my sincere apologies. Technology has decided to fail me today, but I hope you can hear me. So
Yes.
Happy to horn in as far as like shipping is concerned. Could you come back in terms of the question? What exactly do you want me to chime in on? Is it the shipping cost or is it the tariff in terms of duty?
I literally just needed to make sure that you could be heard, so that when we come in for you and we're like hungry dogs, that that you can be heard. So one of the things that I really wanted to find
I'm
out,
leaving.
because these are such interesting conversations that we hear, and it's great having logistic partners like DHL, coming on board and wanting to have these conversations. But again, okay, so country to country, there are always these different tariffs that are needed. And then also the costing. I want to say that when we look at the African economies and how much we're being taxed, is there and are there ways that DHL can work with our designers in order to push, when we think local, for me, I'm thinking local as Africa. I'm not just thinking local as Kenya. I'm thinking local as Africa.
Yes.
I would love to work with somebody from Burkina Faso, from Cape Town, Joburg, whatever, South Africa. I want to go into Mozambique, and then I want to source a little bit in Rwanda. I want to tie the fabrics of who we are, and I want to create the story of how beautiful Africa is, if I was a designer, right? But we can't, we can barely get across to even Uganda. We can barely get across from South Africa to Mozambique. How is DHL going to really harness and help us build this business? I know it comes from our Africa, Africa intra-trade and dealings. We've had businesses to businesses. We've had workshopping for workshopping, and we've done it all. It gets tiring that we end up going to suitcase mentality. It's true. I don't know if anybody's going to call it a spade, but it's the reason why people rather throw in suitcases and say, hey, please. But how can DHL be our guy? I want you guys to be my guy, you guy, my guy, our guy. I want you to be that for us, because we need to grow our businesses, and we can't do it without having like logistic partners who also feel our pinch and our pain. I'm speaking for all of us.
I love that. Yes, and I love the fact that you've actually brought it up, and it's right at the core of what we do is to ensure that we're not only here for businesses that are big and massive, like we've been known in the past. We're basically here for every business of every size. I'm just going to put my camera off just to make sure that the bandwidth is okay. But ideally, yes, I feel your pain, and this is what we actually started to do some years back in terms of curating the rates. So what we've tried as much as possible is to align with how people shop. I can see at this point, like now, for example, if we look at now, the rule of thumb is that you find a lot of the people that are
Sammy, just come back again.
Have this. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes. No, I was saying in terms of the question that you've asked from a logistical angle, the price is of course very important because there's a direct sort of like link to whether someone is going to buy or not. So what we've tried as much as possible is to have an approach that helps people buy online, and how this has been achieved is by offering a bundled kind of offering. So over and above the fact that you want these goods to get to the destination country, if someone is ordering, let's say, for example, from Kenya into Europe or into an American or Asia or even Africa, what is on their mind is how much more am I paying? So we've tried as much as possible to make sure that it's along or within the lines of the percentages that people are used to, which is basically, like, for example, if it's an item that you're buying for, let's say, about $100, we try as much as possible to make sure that the cost of shipping is maybe 50 more. So it's a question of, it's a balance in terms of how that would work out. So I think we also try and help customers at this point to see Sorry, someone is telling me to switch off my camera. The camera is off. Yeah, so I'm just saying at this point, it really depends on how you structure that particular cost. But yeah, I can tell you for a fact, at this point, we do have the very best prices as far as e-commerce is concerned, and not only in Kenya, but in Africa and in the other continents as well. So I hope my connectivity was okay, and I'll continue to hone in as we move on. We are there for you. We can be your guy, and we
I
are
like
your
the
guy.
question.
So I hope you can.
I like the question that Liz Lenjo has asked, and she says, hey, all, Sammy, as an insider, what kind of laws or policy would you like to see as a courier that would popularize your service in the movement of goods across the continent and internationally? I think that is a fair game question, because it's something that I feel we all just want to understand, like, what do you need from our side? So what laws, what policies can we bring? All these advocates, can we have a policy chat, post this, to make sure that the business is actually running sufficiently in Africa, and that for DHL, you can actually look at all these policy makers across the border? Because I know Africa Development Bank had a very big had a big meeting, and they basically said, in terms of what all these fashion industry people are looking for, look at your government, look at policy, and then address it with the logistic partners that you're working with. So I think that's a fair point from what Liz has asked.
Yeah, this is a very good question. If I could just hone in on that one, I think, yes, I'd want to chime in. I think one of the biggest challenges we would have is, like, now, if you look at what we're currently discussing as far as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is concerned, is basically aligned to like 90% removal of fiscal charges. So I think one of the biggest things that would really help in terms of just cross-border and international trade would be just increasing the thresholds in terms of what that comes in as tax-free. So if you look at, like, now, major markets such as the Americas, one of the reasons why there's a lot of consumerism kind of behavior happening is because they do have this already aligned. So if you buy anything that is below, say, $800, then you don't even get charged anything. So that just works out very well in terms of just the whole experience as far as buying. So that's a really, really good question. I mean, in terms of policy change, that would really help. I think the other one that I could think about is, like, now, for example, when it comes to returns, in most cases, especially in African countries, you'll find that there's no way of the taxman knowing that this is the same product that actually left. And in real sense, there's actually like an airway bill that shows that this actually was exported, because most of the times there's actually a cost implication in terms of duties. So yeah, that's what I would say at this point. If those two things could actually change, and maybe just one third one that I've just thought about, like, now, for example, when it comes to de minimis thresholds, the other thing would just to see how can we sort of like unify how they collect this, like in terms of like the VATs. So that's just the other thing that I've mentioned. So yeah, I think that would really change the way we do our business as well.
Thanks, Sammy. I appreciate that. I was just kind of showcasing some of the great points that were coming in from Tumi. Also with regards to what she does of running the fashion, running about a fashion firm, South Africa, which has been around for 8 years. And she's been working with Erica, an Italian South African who is a PR marketing fashion specialist. I'm liking the whole idea of everybody getting together and actually figuring out how we're all going to be, getting together and putting like the DHLs, because this is where the business happens on a logistics standpoint. So it'd be nice to hear from you, Thulani, from Tumi, how that works for you and how we can push our own intra-Africa trade and what we need to do, what policies, what agendas. We've got the works of New Faces, New Voices, which are part of the Grace Michel Foundation and who have been also powering my conversations because of allowing us to speak on advocacy and pushing the value chain and understanding what the value chains look like and how we can actually elevate the businesses and find the financing for it also. So I have a quick question, and this one is for, just let me put this back into a nice one. I love the idea of collaboration. That's a good one. Let me send this back to Fabian. In terms of African brands, are you also on a global perspective? How do you see us also entering into the European market? And Franco, how do you see us? I know you've given us like now the structure of how we need to frame ourselves and why we need to frame ourselves in those aspects. Is there possibilities for some of the brands that, you know, like Tumi works with or Thulani works with or Waridi works with that you want to bring into a space where we could have an Africa space with Engelhorn or with Otto, because I know the Otto guys are also listening in. Is there ways that you guys would be interested in seeing Africa also expand out into your space?
I think first of all, the first question is we have to answer is: are the customers, our both customers, interested in Asian fashion or African fashion or European fashion, or are they more interested in the design and if they like the design and the fitting and the colorways and so, then maybe the customer doesn't in the first step is interested where the design heritage is from, because if a design is too much rooted, doesn't matter where it comes from, actually, then maybe it doesn't fit the taste of the local customers, or the range of the possibilities of customers is too small. So I would think of if there's a designer who has the right approach and the taste for a big market, then there's always a chance. Doesn't matter where the roots are. That's the first thing, in my opinion. And second thing is if it's only one customer, Engelhorn or Otto or KaDeWe Group or whatever in Germany or in France or Rinascente in Italy, it's not that big business. It's the first step, of course, and that could be a starting point. But there are still challenges. Some of the challenges we heard already from customs, tariffs, all the delivery point, order making. So if some organization, some agency will make a foundation that brings some brands together, where our buyers can see it in Milano or Düsseldorf or Paris, and then have a broader platform. Because what is probably really tough to bring like 20 buyers to Addis or to Nairobi to buy and make the order. So maybe we can do it digitally, but better is to get a feel, a touch of the clothes, of course, and the design. And the second, we have to like the approach is, or the retailer think, okay, they are getting an order, and then the delivery time is on the 1st of March, and it's not on the 1st of May, it's not on the 1st of April, it's 1st of March, and a couple of days around that. And that's, I think, the most difficult part in the logistics. What I learned in Addis, it's still so complicated. It's like in Europe. We think we are one business and economic country, but there are rules at every border, and that's the biggest challenge in the Africa Union still, in my opinion. So we have to solve this first to have a safe transportation channel.
Yeah.
Franco, what do you think?
Well,
maybe Franco, why don't you turn off your screen, your video, because then we might be able to hear
so
you
you better. Can you hear me better?
I hope so. Yes, just keep going. We'll let you know.
Okay. The first thing is exactly what Fabian was saying. That means you have development before getting to Europe. Because, for instance, I had some designers from in Milano, and she just brings African designers. One of the challenge is that the same fabric because they don't get it from the suppliers. So it is important to in Africa before going to foreign markets, because quality and consistency when you approach any store, multi-brand stores or department stores. So this is the key. To understand your clients, because if you target the diaspora is one thing. Woman, I do agree what Fabian said. It doesn't mean to be in the African part of the store. It is you sit among all the other international designers, regardless where do you come from. Once again, product development, logistics, and service, you have to prove it on your local. You will burn your credibility and your brand. These are the key points for me.
Is it possible, Franco, I don't know, on the message section, are you able just to type in your key points so that everybody can just kind of go through it? Because it was still breaking up just a little bit, but I think we got a little bit of a general aspect of what you were saying, if possible. Sorry for that. You know, Michael, what do you think about it? Because you know, I keep running back to you because you're the one who's putting us into a position of tech, and where Thulani and where we are working with, you know, partnerships with New York, with Vivier, and trying to link in the African market and actually create our own platform that actually builds our ecosystems, which is going to be so beautiful because they're already launching a few projects, one being in Zanzibar. And we'll be able to talk about that like a little bit later on. And I feel like Camilla needs to be here to sit and actually talk about what they're doing with Vivier. But like with yourself, Michael, I mean, like, what is your take from what Fabian and what Franco have said? And I'd also love to hear from you, Isabella.
I think I just underscore the points that they're making, which are very important in terms of once we have an understanding of ourselves as African designers and African businesses, it just becomes very easy to speak both in a differentiated way and also in one voice. Because I'm also just perusing through the comments and liking what I'm seeing in terms of just the point of Ubuntu and African sharing coming through very clearly from what some of the commenters are saying. So I think it's important that we do find our our voice as disparate brands, but also our voice as a collective. And then now we can have the power to impact things such as policy, things such as rates. I think just that collective effort would go a long way in that effort. So again, like I always bring it back to digital. That just comes in a way in terms of whether you're targeting Africa, whether you're targeting outside of the continent. It becomes very easy once you've zeroed in on who exactly you're speaking to, the tone of voice that they are going to likely receive it as. So it all comes back to the same starting point, I'd say. It's a circular kind of narrative.
Right. Isabella, I also think that if you're going to just chime in from what Michael has said, I also feel like, yeah, we still have a lot of hard work to do internally and on the continent. What are your thoughts? Because I really want to open it up now to, like after this, I feel like we're going to get some really great questions from our listeners and the people who have joined in. So yeah, please give me some of your thoughts.
Yes, you're right. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done still. But I think the important thing is, one, we've recognized that there's work that needs to be done. And more importantly, what is that work? I think I've seen somebody saying, we need to be careful of the risk of having a lot of people doing the same thing. So we have the opportunity to sort of fashion the value chain and really build these specializations such that first we are able to maintain the quality, the consistency of whatever is being produced locally for the local market, such that even when you're scaling up, you don't feel like it's a stray. It has been the norm, and observing some of these standards and holding ourselves accountable, even with our local markets here first. That is the most important thing. And I think just coming back to, the Ubuntu-ness, if we're able to say, if Ethiopia is so good with a particular type of textile and somebody else can do, or they do the production of a certain garment, and, trying to build and sort of upscaling and moving a product to really hone in on those specializations, because I think with this, you have a very strong value chain, and more importantly, it gives you the power of negotiation and deciding what you want the sector to look like for Africa. What are those gaps that we have? And with a strengthened voice where we are all working together, because the challenges are common and we've tried to work around that. You have more power, more leverage to sort of get things done from that point of view. So yes, there's work to be done, but we know where the work is, and I think people are willing to collaborate to get it done.
I really like that, because I was just thinking about and some of the pointers that I'd shared with you guys was like leveraging across cross-border trade and regional fashion hubs. Really, first of all, I feel like in Kenya, we just need to get our localized, and really, we need to really support it and hone in and support each other. I feel like investing in the education, which I feel like E4 Impact has been doing, and which is, I also know that Verve Pro is working towards also building that mentorship and education platform where on the e-commerce space, people can really actually understand what it means to be, and I don't know if the word is tech savvy, but I don't think it's tech savvy. It's just really a knowledge of what's happening online and how you can leverage from what is happening online on an e-commerce space. And then also just understanding what our full potentials are, in terms of the free trade. I know Liz Lendra has been talking about that. What are some of the policies that we need to bring in, and how do we leverage with each other? How do we promote those intra-Africa trade sessions? And then, there's so many hurdles that we have to overcome, but we've got strategic steps that we could actually start taking in terms of working with each other. Can I, and kindly may I, open up so that we're not all sitting here for the next 3 hours just chatting about it? I know my idea is to, and these talks could go like a whole day, by the way. This is like such a large topic to fit into like such a small segment. And which is why I like my live chats, because then everybody gets to interact with each other and gets to exchange information. But can I open the floor? So anybody who's got questions for our panelists, I'm willing and loving to hear from you on what you have to ask. I'm going to start maybe with the first one that I saw from, let's go here, from Dagmar. I know she had put it up here. Have I lost it? Sorry, guys, give me a second. Question was for Fabian. What are the challenges you're facing with working with African designers? Are there any? That's a great question. Do you have any challenges other than?
Well, for us, is to have the right network and to find the first step to follow the dots, and where can I get to know all the different kind of brands established already, or designers who are upcoming, and to have like an idea of the European tastes and needs in our sector of doing business. And the needs we already talked about. So what about timelines and logistics? And do they have like already maybe an agency where they do, or they have corporations in Europe, in Milan or Paris or Düsseldorf, for instance? So that for us, it's really difficult if we have to do the groundwork. So if there's an established platform where we can connect, maybe even with other partners like Otto also, who are like for many years working in Africa already, where you can use the knowledge already, then it's easier. And the challenges are not, well, finding the right people and the right brands, and the other challenges are always in the process. Tariffs, customs, logistics, and then if this is done, it's workable, I think.
So Sammy, so many spaces where you come into the context of really how do we get into this space. I like a question here from Liz Lenjo. She says, Michael, do you have data on market insights in terms of consumption of African fashion brands? What are some of the key observations you have made? Do you have that, or is this something that you're working towards?
We are building around it. What I'll tell you at this point in time is that the maybe obvious, but maybe not to everyone, but US and Europe are really big, and especially Western Europe. And then the places that are emerging for African brands are places like South America, specifically Brazil. You have places like the Far East, so you have your Japan, you have China to some extent, and then where else? I'd say but more or less, I'd also really put in the African market in there. Like I said, there's a lot of hunger for cross-pollination and collaboration, and people are really looking at each other. I think Fabian had made the point that in Europe, because it's a very mature market, there's a lot of trade secrecy in terms of I can't really reveal everything that I do. But in Africa, it's kind of like the opposite, because we're very nascent right now. Everyone is growing up, so there's a lot of hand-holding and there's a lot of collaboration in that space. But I'd say for the international markets, those would be the ones that I'd point out right now.
Okay. I like that. And so maybe we can also get a group of people who can, anybody who's interested in, and that's what we said, we're going to have like the core continuum for anybody who's listening right now, that we're going to have a couple of sessions, maybe off the webinar section, but onto a different space where we can also just have one-on-one sessions with Isabella, with Franco, with Michael. So it's just something, and Fabian, that is on the interim. So I like this. I said, and it's just such a very honest space. I find that the term Ubuntu is very much used in South Africa fashion industry, but is very limited to who gets to participate in these so-called collaborative initiatives. I just don't think it's only just about South Africa. I think it's, we're out here trying to kick down gatekeeper gates, you know, and break down those barriers and try to bring people in to create those collaborations. And these are the spaces that we do it. I feel like if Liz is out here talking about how she can create and how we can change policies, if we've got the likes of, Tumi, we've got Dagmawit, all of us are all in the same space where we're all speaking the same language. No matter what happens, we want to collaborate, we want to partner, and we want to trade amongst each other. And so it starts here. I feel it starts here. This could be the tribe right now, because you've got all the right key players in the right space at the right time, and we're all talking about the right thing, which is how do we grow and build our businesses, even just from a local perspective. Local being, for me, in Africa, that's local enough right now, because I can't just talk about Kenya. So that said, let's see who else has got, let's see, there we go, another question. Michael, what has been the biggest challenge for African designers taking up digital transformation, particularly women entrepreneurs, if any?
Thanks to Lani for that question. I'd say there's around 3 areas that entrepreneurs are really struggling with, and that's in having data-driven insights. So being able to process all the data that's on the back end of their website and social media, and be able to make sense of that to target the people that they want. There's also an issue with creating engaging content strategies. So people really just repeat themselves over and over on social media and call that a content strategy, when I would really think that it's not. So it would start from where everyone has been saying that understand your customer first, understand your identity first, then marry the two. I think there's also a huge challenge in terms of, because some of these businesses are just entrepreneur owned and operated, there's the need to also have someone responding to queries every now and then. So even as VavPro, we are creating solutions for that in terms of like chatbots that can help you just really focus on what you do best, which is in terms of being a creative. And so that all the back-end stuff can be taken care of by something that is automated. So you have more free time to just actually run your business, and then the orders just come in. So just from an integration perspective, from a data-driven perspective, also from what someone asked earlier in terms of finding markets, just comes from the data side. That's what I'd see as the biggest challenges. And again, to the issue of women entrepreneurs, those are the people that we're dealing with the most, because in the lifestyle sector, I would say 80% of the people driving the conversation and the movement forward are women entrepreneurs, which is something that's really commendable.
That is a really great space, and that's amazing. Yeah, because that's, I was going to say, the head of households. Sorry for saying that for the chaps. I want to read out something that Franco just wrote to me. And, one of the things that he said was to ensure that products development and logistics at a great point, consistency on products and deliveries is a must when approaching the international markets. Secondly, you need to target the key clients. Is it a diaspora? Is it international? This will define the product features, colors, shapes, etc. And then he says, finally, you have to work on a collection structure that and key items, and ensure the possibility to reassort them in the stores. To identify some new emerging designers from Africa, we have the Afro Fashion Week in Milan during Milan Fashion Week. So those could be also spaces. I feel like the Afro Fashion Week in Milan is one of the spaces that we should be also thinking about, just as opposed to just, oh, we would just want to go into Milan Fashion Week, and just thinking about the aesthetics and the styles and what are we pushing and promoting? Are we pushing on culture, tradition, print? And also just understanding that even on the other side, how many people really leverage on print? Sometimes people think it's too much, and we just think we're out here, we want to showcase who we are. We want to show you what our ancestors were celebrating. So what stories do we really want to tell? And what is my brand aesthetic? What story do I really want to tell? I'm going to go back into the comment section. I'm going to open, let's see, another question. I like this. Oh my gosh. Can we just talk about this to me? where she says, we also need to make use of our embassies and trade agencies in terms of trade agreements, taxes, and duties, especially when it comes to trading outside the continent. At the end of the day, as a finance person, it has to make financial sense and must be incorporated into the pricing results, into an ultimate profit. It would be great to take this further with DHL and with the retailers. So challenge goes to Neha Artisanal Gallery. Challenge goes to any retailers in South Africa. Challenge goes to Industry Africa. Challenge goes to Ajoa. Challenge goes back to Sammy. Everything, all roads lead to Sammy at this point when it comes to DHL and logistics. But also, funny enough that we were thinking about how all these embassies creating cultural exchange programs and the works, but I'm not too sure who to throw this to. Isabella, Michael, what do you guys think? Fabian? Anybody want to take that up? Because I do believe that in embassies, trade agencies, and our cultural and trade advisors who are here are the ones who are supposed to kind of ease into our spaces.
I can take the initial shot. Yes, and very, very interesting conversations on the chats. I feel like we need a few more hours just to engage. But coming back to this, you're right. I think our embassies and the trade agencies have a responsibility in terms of just one, first of all, making the information available and accessible so that people understand what is required when you're thinking of, scaling out of the continent, because sometimes it is not very clear. You could go to one agency, the information is not harmonized. You go to another agency, they tell you something that is different. So it would be great to see more. I see somebody has said aggressive collaboration also at this level of embassies and agencies, like what we have seen, for example, in the agricultural sector. There's a whole database of, if you're looking for certification, if you're looking to export to this place, these are the things. So if we can have a repository that is centralized, where if I come and I want to get my product out of the continent, it's very easy to see the requirements, what is the procedure and indicative cost, so that what you're getting is not mixed signals and then you do the runaround, which tends to be the case. And also, I think with this, people tend, you do something, you get the habit of, I know how to get my product to Italy, I know how to get my product to Germany. And with that, even this, if you're talking about collaboration, that information then tends to scale downwards to people who might not be ready to access that platform. But I tell you, if we are working or collaborating to get to this product, we must do things in a certain manner, because there's a certain requirement for us to access a particular market. So that's how I see it. And here, maybe coming back to Michael, that's an interesting thing that technology can come to assist to sort of consolidate all this information that the different embassies and agencies can be able to sort of plug in and say, there's an update here, there's a change here. There are info sessions that are happening across different countries if you're looking to export. Because also there's issue of just, cultural practices and appreciation, like what Franco was mentioning, so that we can leverage something like this that would be a very powerful tool for knowledge as well.
Absolutely. So here's an interesting thing. I would love to hear, oh man, how would I invite Tumi here? Because I just feel like she's out there shouting. She's like, oh my God. It's just great hearing the interaction and the engagement from you guys is absolutely fantastic. Can I just open up to maybe 2 more questions before we close off? I do want to just kind of showcase what Liz was just saying here. She owns her own boutique legal service firm with regional and international presence. So for everybody, I know that you're always down in South Africa, you've been in Ethiopia, and I like this about the legislative developing consulting. I feel like as creatives, why can't we all just get together with Liz and with a couple of legal heads from across the borders, and see how we can challenge, bring this advocacy really to the forefront, to have conversations on building this intra-Africa space. Private chat, let's see. What I like about, so Franco has also just put in something here, and he says, to identify some new emerging designers from Africa, we have the African Fashion Week, and he says, IP is very important. So somebody said like that we always will come up with the same things, and that is a very big challenge, but IP is very important. And Liz, you're so great at doing this. And so I'm just very keen on seeing what else we could, how else we're going to go forward with these comments. So my question now to everyone is, so what's the best way forward? You've heard what everybody is talking about. So since I'm not about talking for talking, I like action. I like the action part. I like to check off my little boxes. What are some of the boxes that we need to check off? Let me start with you, Mike. What are you looking for? What is your challenge to all these guys who are listening in, and all these brilliant women and beautiful minds that are here?
They seem like very intelligent people, judging by the quality of the questions and comments. So what I say is not to insinuate that they're not doing it already, but it's just what I've observed in terms of just having an understanding from start to finish of the online buyer journey would really smooth out all the hitches in terms of getting your product out there. I know I'm being very digital fast. I know there's also a lot of brick and mortar considerations, but I just say from a digital perspective, once you understand what the state of mind is of a customer when they're trying to look for you, the fact that they're not looking only for you, and they're not looking for, they're looking to fulfill a need, which you must put yourself in front of them and be able to fulfill it. I think that smooths out a lot of problems that a lot of people experience.
Okay. Isabella, Franco, Fabian, what would you guys like to chime in on?
All right, I can go. So for me, first of all, it's been very, very insightful, lovely conversations. Probably what I'd want to hunker down to is, consistency, focus, just to build the business around your creative brand. Because at the end of the day, it's a business. Right. So there are other aspects that would still need to be looked into. Then their collaboration. I think that has come out very clearly. And I love, as I said, somebody said aggressive collaboration. Then finally, there are resources available, there are entities, organizations, and individuals who are available to support. So leverage all this, get one thing here, it moves you to the next stage. Build out your network. That's your social capital. And Linda, really thank you for this opportunity. I think we need to have more of these conversations.
Thank you so much. Franco?
I wrote that a key point is also about the brand and the storytelling, not just about the product. You have to sell a dream, a story, not just as a product. So pay attention also in this part that will become a key issue then for communication and especially for online sales.
I love that. I really do, because a lot of people don't really pay attention to that aspect, or the storytelling goes wild. It goes on safari. So then we need to just hunker down and really make it more finesse. I remember that was one of the big things, Fabian, when you guys were meeting with the designers in Ethiopia. I remember also Waridi coming back and saying that people had so many stories and they were told, bring it down to the main specific story that you're trying to tell. Okay, love that. Fabian, what would you love to say?
No, actually, I'm very happy about this group and the conversation and the question. I think a lot and maybe everything is said for this evening, and Franco and myself brought a lot of insights from the European view. So thanks, Franco, for helping me out. And yeah, I'm really curious what is the future of the people I met, and maybe there are some connections, and there are some apparel and designers in Europe in our store soon.
I love that. So Nursema from Otto says creativity and design are in the blood of African designers. There are so many untouched talents. However, the biggest challenges lie in the quality, workmanship, and access to raw materials. If the technique is right, the fabric quality often falls short. If both align, certified sustainability becomes the next hurdle. Oh, that's such a food for thought. I would love to see what everybody else is thinking about this. So whether it's the investment needed, meeting stringent requirements or awareness processes that comply with European market regulations, these factors make it challenging to scale African fashion globally. But challenge means also opportunities. That's why we're all here. Absolutely. This is why we are definitely here. So mine is to scale up, and mine, I will request. So for anybody who did not email me, I'm going to request that you share your email address, because there's going to be a few sessions that we're going to be putting together. And we're also working in line with Franco and Isabella, hopefully, that we're partnering to do something in September. But before that, the Hub of Africa Fashion Week, Waridi from FA254, myself will be doing, and partnership with Verve Pro, we'll be doing an 8-week online session, and this will be individual to each sector. Liz, I would love to invite you to be a part of this, because I think you, with the advocacy, with the policy, we need to dive into some really good business, and we need to see how we're breaking down these doors. There's so many doors to break down at this point. So I would love to have you on board. So can we continue a post discussion? And I would love to get everybody's email addresses to see if I could maybe do a part 2, because I feel like we do need a part 2. Otherwise, everybody's going to be starving, and children are not going to go to sleep tonight. Because I could talk for days. So if everybody's in agreement, let me say, give me a yay, and we could go on with it. I want to first of all take the opportunity to say thank you to everybody who is listening in. There are so many conversations that we will continue to have. Kindly share your email addresses if I don't already have it. But I am so happy and excited, because I feel like we've just opened Pandora's box, and that is a great thing, because for the first time, Pandora is beautiful. And we gain to make Pandora look even more richer, hopefully, in the future. So Franco, thank you so very much for taking time to be with me.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you so very much. Isabella, thank you so much, to the future of partnering and doing amazing things and lifting and building people's businesses. Fabian, I am looking forward to challenging you to having in one of the department stores, just having a little section that says Africa on the rise and showcasing some of those beautiful brands that we're gonna show them to you. So allow us to gather ourselves together, and then we will come back to you and we will show you like how amazing we are as brands. I know you know that we are amazing, but now you said like you need us to focus in on it. We're going to do that. Sammy, we have a lot of work to do in terms of logistics, and I feel like we are definitely going to continue to engage with each other to make sure that we satisfy this beautiful continent of Africa. So everyone, I want to say thank you so very much. New Faces, New Voices for powering this conversation, to DHL for allowing us to also have this conversation. At least you understand what the challenges are, even when it comes to building capacity building, creating the advocacy conversations. There's so much work to be done, and let February be the first of the month where we build each other, and may December be the part where we actually showcase what we've done with each other. So cheers to everybody. Thank you for making time to be here. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
Have a good evening.
Have a beautiful, beautiful evening, and we will speak soon. Bye. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Bye.